The first time I died, the house was still standing. That was the cruelest part. The roof had been replaced. The drywall was new. The black mold had been torn out. The electrical panel had been upgraded. The kitchen cabinets no longer smelled like salt water. From the street, the Bennett house looked better than it had before Hurricane Iris. I was the only thing in it that had been ruined. By the time I understood that, my name was attached to 3 emergency repair contracts, a home equity bridge loan I did not benefit from, and a stack of insurance documents for a property I did not own. My father owned the house. My mother was on the deed with him. My younger brother, Caleb, and his wife, Jenna, lived there rent-free. I had lived there too. But living somewhere and owning it are not the same thing. I learned that after I spent almost $200,000 saving a home everyone called ours until money was involved. Then it became theirs. My first life ended quietly. No courtroom. No dramatic confession. No one pushed me off a cliff. I simply collapsed at my desk at 37 after 3 years of working 2 jobs, fighting debt collectors, and trying to untangle contracts I had signed because my father kept saying, "We're family, Avery. We'll sort it out later." Later never came. My heart stopped before the ambulance reached the hospital. Then I woke up to my mother shouting through a bedroom door. "Avery, if you're going to make this harder, you can leave tonight." I opened my eyes. For several seconds, I did not understand the ceiling. The water stain above the fan had not been there after the renovation. The curtains were the old blue ones. My phone was charging beside the bed. The screen showed September 9th. 3 days before Hurricane Iris made landfall. My heart slammed once. Then again. Outside the bedroom, Jenna was crying. "I just don't understand why she gets the bigger room when the baby's coming." My mother answered in the exhausted voice she used when she wanted me to surrender without making her ask directly. "She's had that room since she moved back after college." That was years ago. I know. Caleb and I need space. I know. And she doesn't. I sat up. The words were exactly the same. Every one of them. In my first life, that conversation had lasted almost an hour. Jenna was 8 months pregnant. She and Caleb had been using the small back bedroom while they saved for a place. They had been saving for 4 years. The nursery furniture they ordered would not fit. So they wanted my room. Not temporarily. They wanted me to move to the enclosed porch. I had refused. My father had called me selfish. My mother had cried. Caleb had said I was making his pregnant wife feel unwelcome in her own family. Jenna had finally shouted that if I cared about the baby, I would leave. I left for 2 nights. Then the hurricane warning intensified. My father called because he could not find the aluminum storm panels. My mother called because the generator would not start. Caleb called because the roofer I had recommended wanted a deposit. Jenna called because the flood policy renewal had lapsed and she did not know the login. I went back. Of course I did. I always went back. 3 days later, Iris pushed an 11-foot storm surge through the neighborhood. Everyone evacuated safely because I forced them to leave. The house did not fare as well. The rear roof section lifted. Water entered the attic. The first floor flooded. The detached garage collapsed. Insurance covered less than everyone expected because my father had allowed the flood policy to lapse after complaining the premium was robbery. I paid. Then I signed. Then I borrowed. Then my family spent years telling me I was too controlling about money. I looked at the bedroom door. My mother knocked again. Avery? I'm awake. We need to settle this. No, we don't. Silence. I got out of bed. My legs were steady. I opened the door. My mother stood in the hall. Caleb leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Jenna sat on the couch, one hand under her stomach. My father stood near the kitchen with the expression he used when he believed a decision had already been made. I remembered all of them standing in a temporary rental after the hurricane. I remembered my father sliding a repair contract toward me. You have better credit. I remembered Caleb saying the same thing. You can recover faster. I remembered Jenna crying because the baby needed a stable home. I remembered signing. This time, I smiled. Okay. 4 faces changed. My mother blinked. Okay, what? I'll leave. Caleb straightened. What? You want the room. I'll move out. Jenna's mouth opened slightly. She had prepared for resistance. She did not know what to do with agreement. My father frowned. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. You don't need to move out tonight. You said if I'm going to make this harder, I can leave tonight. My mother looked uncomfortable. I was upset. It's fine. Caleb said, you could just use the porch. No. Then where are you going? A hotel tonight. Apartment tomorrow. My father laughed once. In Hurricane Week? Yes. That's ridiculous. Maybe. Jenna shifted. If you move out, are you still helping with the storm stuff? There it was. Not even 30 seconds. I looked at her. No. Her expression changed. What do you mean no? I mean I'm moving out. I won't be responsible for the house. My father's voice sharpened. No one said you were responsible. Good. Then we agree. Avery. I'll pack. I closed the door. My hands did not start shaking until I pulled out the first suitcase. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the fear move through me. In my first life, I had believed leaving meant abandoning them. Now I understood something simpler. The house was not mine. The maintenance decisions were not mine. The insurance choices were not mine. The repair budget was not mine. I had spent years doing unpaid work for a property where I had no legal authority. Every time I told my father the roof needed work, he said it could wait. Every time I warned him about flood insurance, he said I was catastrophizing. Every time the generator failed, Caleb said he would learn how to service it. He never did. Then when disaster arrived, they reached for me. Because I always knew the passwords. I knew the contractors. I knew the policy numbers. I knew which windows leaked. I knew the house better than the people who owned it. That knowledge had become a leash. I packed clothes first. Then documents. Passport. Birth certificate. Employment records. Tax files. My laptop. My external drive. I removed my name from the family utility autopay where possible. The electricity was in my father's name but billed through my bank account. I canceled that payment method. The internet account was mine. I scheduled termination for midnight and emailed Caleb the transfer link. The home security subscription was also mine. I transferred administrator access to my father. Then I opened my email. I searched Iris. The National Hurricane Center advisory had just upgraded the storm. Major hurricane. Potential storm surge. Evacuation orders possible within 24 hours. I forwarded the advisory to the family group chat. Me, official update. Me, please follow county evacuation instructions and emergency management guidance. Then I sent a second message. Me, since I am moving out tonight, effective immediately I am not acting as property manager, maintenance coordinator, insurance contact, emergency contact, contractor contact, or financial guarantor for the house. Me, I will not authorize repairs, payments, loans, purchases, claims, or vendor work on behalf of the property owners. Me, Dad and Mom own the house and should handle all decisions directly. The typing bubbles appeared immediately. Dad, what the hell is this? Mom, Avery, please. Caleb, seriously? Jenna, we just asked for the bedroom. I put the phone down. At 6:40, I called a hotel 20 miles inland. They had one room available for 2 nights. I booked it. Then I called an apartment complex near my office. I had toured it in my first life but never moved because my mother said paying rent elsewhere was wasting money when I could help the family. They had a studio available. Move in tomorrow. I paid the application fee. At 7:15, my father knocked. Open the door. It's open. He entered. He looked at the suitcases. You're actually leaving. Yes. This is childish. I disagree. You live here for almost nothing. I pay the internet, security, half the electric bill, most groceries, property maintenance, and whatever emergency comes up. That's called contributing. I agree. I won't be contributing after I leave. His mouth tightened. You think because you handle a few bills you own the place? No. That was the point. I know I don't. He stared at me. The answer disturbed him more than anger would have. Finally, he said, the storm panels are in the garage. Okay. I need help putting them up tomorrow. I won't be here. You know how they go. You helped install them when you bought them. That was 7 years ago. Then Caleb can help. From the hallway, Caleb said, I have work. I turned. So do I. He frowned. You're taking off tomorrow anyway. I'm not. You always take storm prep days. Not this year. Jenna appeared behind him. My doctor told me not to lift anything. No one is asking you to. She looked at me as if I had. My father exhaled. You're punishing everyone because you lost an argument about a room. I'm leaving because you told me to leave. No one meant permanently. I do. My mother began crying. That sound used to control my nervous system like a switch. I felt guilt rise. Then I remembered a line from the debt mediation in my first life. The mediator had asked my father why I had signed the bridge loan. My father had shrugged. She volunteered. I had looked at him. He had not looked back. I zipped the suitcase. I'll be out in an hour. My mother whispered, what if the storm gets bad? Evacuate when the county tells you. You know what I mean. I do. What if something happens to the house? Call your insurer. My father laughed bitterly. She's really doing this. I picked up my laptop bag. Yes. At 8:13, I drove away. The house looked warm behind me. Yellow kitchen light. Blue shutters. My mother's fern hanging from the porch. For one terrible second, I wanted to turn around. I knew what Iris would do. I knew the rear roof deck had soft spots. I knew the garage door had a weak lower brace. I knew water would enter through the laundry room vent. I knew the flood policy had lapsed 4 months earlier. I knew because I had begged my father to renew it in my first life. He had refused until 2 days before landfall. Then the insurer's waiting period meant the new coverage did not apply to Iris. This time, I had already warned them about the policy twice over the summer. The emails existed. My father had replied, "Not paying that ridiculous premium. We're not in the mandatory zone." I had answered, "The house can still flood outside the mandatory zone." He had sent a thumbs up. That was his decision. I drove inland. At the hotel, I checked in under my own name. No family credit card. No shared account. No one knew the room number except me. At 9:20, Caleb called. I answered. "Where are the panel bolts?" "Garage cabinet above the workbench." "Which cabinet?" "Left of the pegboard." "There are 3. "Then look." He went quiet. "Avery." "What?" "You always organize this stuff." "I did." "So tell me." "I just did." "What size socket?" "I don't remember." That was a lie. 9/16. I remembered because I had bought 3 replacements. But he owned tools. He could figure it out. "Can you come by tomorrow morning?" "No." "It'll take an hour." "No." "Mom's freaking out." "Then evacuate early." "We're not leaving a day before we have to." "That is your choice." His voice hardened. "You're being an asshole." "Maybe. You know the house better than any of us." "I know." "And you're just walking away?" "Yes." He hung up. At 10, my apartment application was approved. Move in at noon. I slept badly. At 6 the next morning, the county issued a voluntary evacuation for low-lying neighborhoods. The Bennett house sat just outside the mandatory flood zone. In my first life, that technicality had made my father overconfident. He said if evacuation were necessary, the government would order it. I forwarded the notice. Nothing else. At 6:22, my mother called. "Are you coming home?" "No." "Avery, your father can't get the generator started. Call the service company. They're booked." "I'm sorry." "You serviced it last year." "Yes." "What did you do?" "Changed the fuel filter, drained old gas, replaced the spark plug." "Can you talk Caleb through it?" "No." "Why?" "Because I'm getting ready for work." She went silent. "You're going to work?" "Yes." "During this?" "My office is open until evacuation changes." "What if we lose power?" "Then use emergency procedures." Her voice broke. I don't understand what happened to you. I closed my eyes. In my first life, she had said that when I refused to refinance my own car to pay for a second phase of repairs. What happened to you? As if self-preservation were a personality defect. I moved out. That's all? That's enough. She hung up crying. At 7, my father texted. Dad, insurance login. I knew exactly what he meant. Me, the homeowner's policy is through Coastal Mutual. Me, the account is in your name. Dad, password? Me, I do not know your current password. That was true. I had reset it for him last year and sent it to him. Dad, you set it up. Me, use password recovery. Dad, are you serious? Me, yes. At 7:15, Dad, flood policy? My heart tightened. Here it was. Me, I am not the policyholder. Me, you declined renewal in May. Dad, I told you to handle it. I stared. That was false. I searched email. I found the thread. Me, I emailed you May 3rd and May 19th recommending renewal. Me, on May 20th you replied that you were not paying the premium. Me, I am forwarding that thread now. I forwarded it. No response. At 8, my manager sent a company-wide note allowing remote work. I went to the office anyway. The building was inland and equipped with backup power. I wanted distance. At 9:30, my father called. I answered. You're keeping records now? I've always kept records. You made me look stupid. To whom? Caleb saw the email. I sent it to you. He was standing here. That isn't my responsibility. You knew the policy was lapsed. Yes. You could have renewed it. Not without your authorization and payment. You have my card. No. I removed saved family cards from my accounts last night. He swore. Do you understand what happens if this storm floods us? Yes. Silence. You know? I know what uninsured flood damage can cost. Then why didn't you say something? I did. In May. Avery. What? Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You know exactly what I mean. I did. He wanted the old role back. The daughter who heard panic and converted it into action. I looked out the office window at the bright blue morning. The sky looked harmless. Dad, evacuate if officials advise it. Protect your documents. Take medications. Take the pets. Do not stay to protect property. His voice changed. So you care if we live. The cruelty of that landed slowly. I have never said otherwise. But not the house. The house is your property. He hung up. At 10:40, Jenna texted. Jenna, can you at least order us plywood? Me, no. Jenna, the store says pick up only. Me, then Caleb can pick it up. Jenna, he's working. Me, he should decide whether work or hurricane preparation is more urgent. Jenna, you know his boss. Me, no. Jenna, you could call. Me, no. Jenna, I'm 8 months pregnant. I stared. Me, then please evacuate early and avoid physical storm prep work. Jenna, with what money? Me, the county shelter is free. Jenna, I am not going to a shelter while pregnant. Me, then book a hotel inland if you prefer. Jenna, everything is expensive now. Me, I booked last night. Jenna, of course you did. I did not answer. At noon, I picked up the keys to my studio apartment. It was tiny. White walls. Gray laminate. One closet. A kitchenette with barely enough counter space for a toaster. I loved it instantly. Not because it was beautiful. Because no one else had a key. I carried in 2 suitcases and 1 box. That was all I owned that mattered. At 12:45, the county upgraded evacuation for my parents' area to mandatory beginning at 6 that evening. I forwarded the official notice. Me, mandatory evacuation begins at 6 p.m. Me, please follow county instructions. My mother called immediately. We know. Good. Where are you going? I'm already inland. Can we come to your hotel? I checked out. Your apartment? No. She inhaled sharply. Why not? It's a studio with 1 bed. We're family. I know. Where are we supposed to go? Use the county shelter list or book accommodations. Your father won't go to a shelter. That is his choice. Avery. I closed my eyes. Mom, I am not preventing you from leaving. I am telling you to leave. Then help us. I sent the evacuation information. That's not help. It was. It simply was not the kind of help that required me to surrender money, space, or responsibility. I love you, I said. She began crying again. I did not take the words back. At 2:10, Caleb called. We have a problem. What? Dad says he can't find the deed. Why do you need the deed for evacuation? He wants documents together. Check the fire safe in the closet. Which closet? Parents' bedroom. He says there's nothing. Then call the title company later. You do not need the original deed to leave the house. He exhaled. Can you stop talking like a customer service rep? I'm trying to be clear. You sound like you don't care. I care that you evacuate. What about the house? I am not responsible for the house. He went silent. Then he said, Jenna says you know something. My pulse changed. What? She says you're acting like you know the house is going to get destroyed. I looked out the apartment window. Clouds were beginning to build. I know there is a major hurricane approaching. That's not what she means. What does she mean? You moved out in one night. You canceled everything. You sent that weird legal email. It wasn't legal. It was clear. Why now? Because you kicked me out. We didn't kick you out. Yes, you did. We asked you to switch rooms. Mom told me I could leave. She was mad. I accepted. Avery, if you know something about the storm, tell me. I could not tell him I had already lived through it. I could tell him public facts. The National Hurricane Center says there is a dangerous storm surge risk. The county ordered evacuation. The house has known roof issues. Dad declined flood renewal. That is everything you need to make a safe decision. Will the house flood? I don't know what will happen in this storm. He was quiet. Avery. Evacuate. I ended the call. At 4, my father finally booked 2 rooms at an inland motel. Not with my help. Caleb used his card. The expense caused a family argument because his available credit was low. I knew because he texted me. Caleb had to put $900 on my card because you wouldn't help. I did not reply. At 5:30, my mother sent a photo of the car packed with suitcases, 2 cats, and Jenna's hospital bag. They were leaving. Relief nearly knocked me over. Whatever else happened, they would be safe. I wrote, "Good. Drive carefully." At 6, rain started. At 7:30, wind rattled my apartment windows. At 9, local news showed coastal roads already flooding. The Bennett neighborhood appeared on a map. Storm surge forecast increased. At 10:15, my father called from the motel. Roof contractor says emergency tarp crew can go tomorrow morning if conditions allow. That sounds reasonable after the storm passes. They want a signed authorization tonight. Then sign it. They want a credit card deposit. Then pay it. My card won't go through. Call the bank. Avery. No. You have available credit. I am not financing repairs. This is before repairs. It's an emergency deposit. No. If we wait, the roof could go. My throat tightened. I knew the roof would go. I knew the rear section would peel back when winds shifted. I knew because in my first life, a neighbor's doorbell camera captured it. I also knew my father had received 3 roofing estimates over the past 18 months. He declined all of them. Too expensive. Not urgent. Can wait. I had offered to split the cheapest repair. He said if I wanted to spend money, I could renovate the kitchen. No, I repeated. He swore. You're letting the house get destroyed to prove a point. No. I'm refusing to use my credit card for property I do not own. You live there. Not anymore. You lived there for years. And paid expenses for years. So now you want to keep score. I want responsibility to match ownership. Silence. Then he said, "You're not my daughter right now." The words hurt even though I remembered hearing worse in my first life. I held the phone tighter. I hope you stay safe. He hung up. At 11:40, power failed at the motel where my family was staying. They still had emergency lighting. My mother texted that they were okay. I slept in short bursts. At 1:17, my phone buzzed with a neighborhood alert. Extreme wind warning. At 1:34, a local storm chaser livestream showed roofs peeling from houses closer to the coast. I did not watch. At 2:10, Caleb texted. "Caleb, Dad's freaking out." "Caleb, neighbor says our alarm went offline." I replied, "Me, do not return until authorities say it is safe." "Caleb, can you check the security app?" Me, I transferred admin access to Dad. "Caleb, he can't log in." Me, use password recovery. Caleb, Avery, please. I put the phone down. I did not log in. In my first life, I had watched every camera until they died. I had seen water enter the garage. I had seen the porch ceiling collapse. I had felt each failure like a personal injury. This time, I stared at the dark window and let the storm belong to the storm. At 6:30 in the morning, Iris made landfall. At 8, the eye passed north. At 10, rain weakened. At 11:15, county officials warned evacuated residents not to return. At noon, aerial footage began. Entire blocks underwater. Cars displaced. Fences flattened. Roof sections missing. Then the camera panned over my parents' street. The Bennett house was visible for 3 seconds. The rear roof was gone. Water surrounded the first floor. The garage had collapsed exactly as before. My phone rang before the footage ended. My mother. Avery. She was sobbing. I saw. The roof is gone. I know. The whole back is open. I know. What do we do? The old answer rose automatically. I'll handle it. I swallowed it. Call your insurer and follow county reentry rules. We need you. You need the insurance company. We don't know what to say. Tell them the truth. What truth? That the roof failed during the hurricane and there is water intrusion. Do not guess about cause. Do not authorize repairs until they explain emergency mitigation procedures. She went quiet. You know how to do this. Yes. Then why won't you help? I just did. No. You know what I mean. I did. She wanted me to become the claim. The contractor calls. The documentation. The photographs. The invoices. The money. The bad news. The person everyone blamed when coverage was lower than expected. I'm not taking over. My mother cried harder. You really can watch us lose everything. You are alive. That house is our life. It is your property. You lived there too. I know. And you feel nothing? I feel a lot. Then act like it. I closed my eyes. I am acting differently. She hung up. At 1:30, my father called. He did not say hello. Coastal Mutual says wind coverage has a 5% hurricane deductible. Yes. That's almost $30,000. I know. They won't cover flood. If you do not have an active flood policy, that is likely. You knew. Yes. His breathing grew heavy. You knew this would happen. I knew the risk. You never told me the deductible was that high. I did. When? Your renewal packet. I also emailed you after last year's premium increase. You expect me to remember an email from a year ago? No. I expect the policyholder to understand the policy. He cursed. Come to the motel. No. We need to talk. We can talk by phone. I'm not doing this by phone. Then we can talk later. Avery, your family is homeless. You are in a motel. The house may be uninhabitable. Those are not the same thing. His voice dropped. You think you're so smart. No. You work in claims. You knew exactly what was coming. I knew what hurricanes can do. You could have saved the house. That sentence nearly pulled me apart. Because in my first life, I had paid the roofer. I had renewed coverage too late. I had found remediation crews. I had fronted deposits. I had spent nights photographing every damaged baseboard. I had saved the house enough for them to keep it. Then they used the repaired value to take out a home equity loan for Caleb's business without telling me. And when the bridge loan I signed came due, my father said the property was not mine, so I had no right to question refinancing decisions. I had saved their house. They had used the saved house to ruin me. No, I said. I could not guarantee that. You could have put up the panels. The roof still could have failed. You could have renewed the flood policy. You declined it. You could have paid. It is not my house. He shouted then. Words about loyalty. About gratitude. About selfishness. I let him finish. Then I said, do not sign any repair financing in my name. Silence. What? I am stating clearly that I do not authorize anyone to use my name, credit, signature, employment information, or financial accounts for repairs or temporary housing. Who said anything about that? No one. I am making it clear. You're sick. Maybe. I hung up. At 2:12, I emailed the same statement to my parents, Caleb, Jenna, and myself. Then I froze my credit with all 3 major bureaus. That action took less than 20 minutes. In my first life, I did it 3 years too late. The next day, residents were allowed back in limited groups. I did not go. My father sent photos. Waterline 4 feet high. Ceiling collapsed in the den. Kitchen cabinets swollen. Drywall destroyed. The nursery furniture Jenna had insisted on moving in before the storm lay on its side under brown water. Seeing it hurt. A baby blanket floated near the stairs. I cried. Not because I regretted leaving. Because loss was still loss. Boundaries did not make you heartless. They just stopped grief from becoming ownership. At noon, Caleb called. The mitigation company wants $10,000 up front. I'm sorry. Dad has maybe 6. Then ask the insurer about emergency advance or approved vendors. They said mitigation isn't all covered. Then get written estimates. Can you call them? No. Avery. No. Jenna is due in 5 weeks. I know. We can't live here. Then use temporary housing options. Insurance only pays if the covered damage makes it uninhabitable. Wind damage likely qualifies, subject to policy terms. See? You know all this. I work in insurance. So help. I can explain general concepts. I will not become the claim representative. What's the difference? Responsibility. He swore. You always make everything complicated. No. I used to make everything simple for you. He went quiet. That was the first time anyone in my family heard the difference. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment. I had not given him the address. Caleb had found it from a delivery receipt in the family email. That alone made my stomach turn. I opened the door but kept the chain on. My father held a folder. We need 5 minutes. No. Avery. What's in the folder? Temporary repair authorization. Then you sign it. They need a guarantor because the insurer hasn't approved the scope. No. You haven't even read it. I don't need to. It's temporary. No. Your mother and I don't have enough available credit. Then choose a different contractor or wait for the adjuster. We can't wait. Mold is already starting. I'm sorry. He lifted the folder. This is $30,000, not $200,000. No. You make good money. No. You have perfect credit. No. It's your family. No. His face changed. He had never heard me say the word that many times without explanation. You planned this. I stared at him. What? You moved out right before the storm. You canceled the payments. You froze us out. You knew we'd need you. I knew you might. And you decided to teach us a lesson. No. I decided not to become financially responsible for a house I do not own. Same thing. It isn't. He shoved the folder toward the gap. I did not take it. Your mother is sleeping in a motel with 2 cats. Your pregnant sister-in-law has nowhere to bring the baby. Caleb is maxing out cards. And you're standing in a brand new apartment protecting your credit score. Yes. The answer shocked both of us. Not because I enjoyed their situation. Because for once, I refused to make their emergency evidence that my stability was immoral. My father's face reddened. You think this is what family does? I think family should not require one person to become insolvent to protect everyone else from decisions they made. I did not cause a hurricane. No. But you declined repairs. You declined flood insurance. You own the house. You control those choices. He stared at me. Then he whispered, "You've been waiting to say that." Maybe I had. Across 2 lives. I hope you find a contractor. I closed the door. My knees gave out after. I sat on the floor and cried for 20 minutes. Then I got up and went to work. The claim became messy. Coastal Mutual covered wind damage subject to the hurricane deductible. Flood damage was excluded. The insurer disputed parts of the roof claim because an engineer found long-term deterioration beneath the failed section. My father called that criminal. It was not. The roofer had documented the same deterioration 11 months earlier. I knew because I had scheduled the inspection. My father had rejected the replacement quote. Then something else happened. A contractor called me directly. Ms. Bennett, we're confirming your authorization for emergency structural stabilization. I did not authorize anything. Pause. You're listed as financial guarantor. My body went cold. Who listed me? Robert Bennett. My father. Do not proceed under my name. We have a form. Do you have my signature? A pause. It appears electronically signed. Send it to me. The PDF arrived. My name. My old address. My employer. Estimated annual income. Electronic signature, Avery Bennett. Date, September 15th. I had never seen it. I called my lawyer before I called my father. In my first life, I had signed similar documents willingly. This life was different. My attorney, Lena Ortiz, reviewed the form. Did you authorize anyone to sign? No. Did you provide your social security number? No. Do they have it? My parents probably have old tax records. Freeze credit. Already done. Good. We send a written dispute immediately. We did. Then I filed an identity theft report. Not because I wanted my father arrested. Because documentation mattered. The contractor suspended the account. My father called within an hour. What did you do? I disputed a contract signed in my name. I signed as your agent. You are not my agent. You've always handled house repairs. I withdrew in writing. We needed the work. Then sign your own name. They wouldn't approve financing. That does not authorize mine. He shouted. I listened. Then I asked one question. Did you sign my name? Silence. Avery. Yes or no? I signed for you. Without permission? We're family. That is not permission. It was an emergency. That is not permission. He hung up. At work the next day, Lena called. There's more. What? The contractor forwarded the financing packet. Someone also submitted a temporary housing credit application with you as co-borrower. My stomach dropped. Who? Caleb. I closed my eyes. Of course. Did it go through? No. Your credit freeze stopped the hard pull. I sat very still. In my first life, this was exactly how it began. One emergency application. One signature. One temporary guarantee. Then another. I had believed the family was improvising. Now I saw the structure. They did not need to conspire in secret. They simply shared one assumption. Avery's credit is available to the family. The assumption was so normal to them that forgery barely felt like forgery. Lena sent formal notices. I stopped answering financial calls from my family. I communicated only in writing. That made everyone furious. My mother wrote, "How can you treat your father like a criminal after everything he's done for you?" I replied, "I am disputing documents signed in my name without authorization. Please do not use my financial information." She did not answer. Jenna wrote, "I hope you're happy. The baby will come home to a motel because you care more about paperwork than family." I replied, "I am sorry you are dealing with housing instability. I did not cause the hurricane and I am not responsible for financing repairs to property I do not own." She blocked me. Caleb did not write at all. 2 weeks after Iris, the bank fraud department contacted me. The temporary housing application had included a copy of an old pay stub from my employment file. Caleb had obtained it from the family desktop. That meant the attempt was not an innocent misunderstanding. He had assembled documents. When investigators contacted him, his story changed. First, he said I agreed verbally. Then he said our parents had authority to consent for me. Then he said he believed I was still part of the household and therefore responsible. None of those explanations made legal sense. The application was denied and flagged. The bank did not pursue criminal charges after confirming no funds were disbursed, but they permanently blocked Caleb from submitting anything under my profile. I thought that would make the family understand. It did not. It made them panic. Because the house was becoming unrepairable. The insurer's wind payment was not enough. The remaining mortgage was still due. Property taxes continued. The municipality issued a notice requiring stabilization. My parents needed cash. They had assumed they could borrow against the repaired value after the storm. But the house could not be repaired without money. And the easiest money source had always been me. Then my father asked to meet with a family attorney. I almost refused. Lena told me to go. Better to hear what they're claiming now than in a lawsuit. We met at an office downtown. My parents sat on one side. Caleb and Jenna on another. Jenna's stomach was enormous. She looked exhausted. I felt compassion. I did not let it become consent. Their attorney, Martin Keene, began carefully. The family would like to resolve misunderstandings about the Bennett property. Lena said Avery has no ownership interest in the property. Keene nodded. That is one issue. My father frowned. No. That's the problem. She's acted like an owner for years. I looked at him. In my first life, when I asked for a percentage of the home after paying for repairs, he said, "You are not on the deed." Now my lack of ownership had become inconvenient. Keene continued. Robert and Linda contend that Avery undertook ongoing responsibility for maintenance, insurance coordination, and storm preparation, creating reliance. Lena's expression did not change. Reliance for what legal claim? We are exploring equitable theories related to detrimental reliance and shared household obligations. I almost laughed. Lena did not. Avery moved out before the storm. She expressly terminated any voluntary management role. She had no contractual duty to maintain property she did not own. Keene raised one hand. We understand. No, my father said. She knew the roof was bad. I told you. You knew it could fail. Yes. And you left. Yes. Jenna leaned forward. You knew the storm would destroy it. I knew there was a serious risk. You never said it would be this bad. I am not a meteorologist. You work in insurance. That does not let me predict a specific loss. Caleb finally spoke. You knew enough to get yourself out. I moved because you kicked me out. We did not kick you out. You told me I could leave if I didn't give up the room. You took that literally. Yes. My mother started crying. Keene tried to redirect. Let's focus on the property. Lena said, before we do, we need to address the unauthorized use of Avery's name. My father shifted. Caleb looked down. Lena placed 3 documents on the table. The contractor guarantee. The temporary housing application. A draft home repair financing package that had never been submitted. My pulse changed. I had not seen the third. My name appeared as co-borrower. Income entered. Employer entered. Estimated credit score entered. Keen turned toward my family. Where did this come from? No one answered. Lena said, metadata shows the draft was created September 8th. The night before they kicked me out. Silence. My skin went cold. September 8th. Before the argument. Before my withdrawal. Before the hurricane. They had already planned to use my credit if repairs were needed. My father stared at the document. I didn't make that. Caleb said nothing. Jenna looked at him. Caleb? His face changed. Very slightly. Enough. Keen asked, did you create this? Caleb rubbed his hands together. I was looking at options. Before the storm? The roof needed work. My throat tightened. You knew it needed work. He looked at me. Obviously. And you were looking at financing using my name. We all live there. You knew I was not on the deed. You have the best credit. There it was. The same sentence from my first life. Not even disguised. You have the best credit. As if that made it communal property. Lena asked, did Avery authorize you to prepare financing in her name? We hadn't talked about it yet. Then the answer is no. Caleb's jaw tightened. It was a draft. A draft using her financial information. Jenna whispered, you said she'd agree. He looked at her. I thought she would. My father snapped, she always has. The room went silent. Not because he realized what he said. Because everyone else did. She always has. That was the whole case. Not a contract. Not a duty. A habit. They had mistaken my habit of rescuing them for a permanent entitlement. Keen rubbed his forehead. Robert. What? That statement is not helpful. My father looked confused. It's true. I sat back. For the first time, I did not feel angry. I felt free. Lena said, there will be no claim against Avery for failing to finance or manage this property. There will be no further use of her financial information. If additional applications appear, we will treat them as intentional identity misuse. Keen nodded slowly. Then he turned to my parents. You need a property solution that does not involve Avery. My mother cried harder. What solution? Sale. Disaster loan. Insurance proceeds plus financing in your own names. Possibly demolition and land sale depending on structural assessment. The word sale hit them like another storm. My father looked at me. You'd let us sell the family home. It's your home. You grew up there. Yes. Your grandmother planted that oak. Yes. Your mother spent 30 years there. I know. And none of that matters? It matters emotionally. It does not make me financially responsible. He shook his head. I don't know who you are anymore. I thought about my tiny studio. My unshared key. My intact credit. My future paycheck. I do. The meeting ended without agreement. But the threat against me disappeared. There was no legal theory strong enough to turn years of voluntary help into ownership liability. The unauthorized documents destroyed whatever moral leverage they hoped to use in a formal dispute. A month later, my parents applied for disaster assistance. They qualified for some support. Not enough. The property insurer paid the covered wind portion. Still not enough. The flood damage remained largely theirs. They took a disaster loan in their own names. The amount was smaller than they wanted. The engineer's report concluded the rear section required extensive reconstruction. My father finally admitted the obvious. They could not afford to restore the house to its previous condition. They listed it as is. The price was painful. Investors bid low. My father called me the night they accepted an offer. The house is gone. Not yet. You know what I mean. Yes. He was quiet. Then, if you had stayed, we could have saved it. I looked around my studio. A second-hand table. A cheap lamp. A shelf I had assembled myself. Maybe he was right in one narrow sense. If I had stayed, I might have found enough money. Enough credit. Enough contractors. Enough paperwork. I had done it before. But saved for whom? At what cost? Maybe, I said. He breathed in. You admit it. I admit I might have found a way to preserve the property. Then why didn't you? Because preserving the property would have destroyed me. Silence. You think we would have let that happen? I almost laughed. You already prepared financing in my name before the storm. He did not answer. Good night, Dad. I hung up. Jenna gave birth 3 weeks later. A healthy girl. They named her Olivia. I sent a gift. A small blanket and a college savings bond in Olivia's name. Not cash to the parents. Not rent. Not a deposit. A gift with a boundary. Jenna texted, "Thank you." Nothing else. That was enough. Caleb found a 2-bedroom apartment. He complained constantly about rent. Then he got a second job. For the first time in years, he adjusted his life to his own finances. My parents moved into a smaller condominium inland using proceeds from the damaged property sale and the remaining insurance funds. My father hated it at first. Then he discovered he liked not maintaining a yard. My mother joined a gardening club. People adapt when rescue is unavailable. That lesson made me uncomfortable. It also made me hopeful. 6 months after Iris, my mother asked to have lunch. Just us. I agreed. We met at a cafe near my office. She looked older. Not dramatically. Just tired. I miss you, she said. I miss you too. You don't come over. You haven't invited me. She looked down. I thought you wouldn't. Maybe I would. Silence. Then she said, I was angry because I thought you knew the house would be destroyed. I knew it was vulnerable. Why didn't you tell us more strongly? I did for years. She flinched. I continued. I told Dad about the roof. I told you about the garage brace. I recommended flood coverage. I serviced the generator. I organized the panels. But because I always fix things eventually, warnings sounded optional. My mother rubbed the edge of her napkin. That's fair. I had not expected those words. She looked at me. I think we thought you liked being needed. The honesty hurt. I did. Why? Because it felt like belonging. She nodded slowly. And we took advantage. I looked at her. She began to cry. Not the crying that used to make me surrender. Different. Quieter. I'm sorry. I let the apology exist without rushing to make her comfortable. After a moment, I said, "Thank you." She wiped her face. Your father isn't there yet. I know. He thinks you abandoned the house. I know. I told him maybe the house was never yours to abandon. My throat tightened. Thank you. We finished lunch. When the check came, my mother reached for it. I've got this. My old reflex was to argue. Instead, I smiled. Okay. That tiny moment felt almost as important as the storm. At work, I changed too. I had always been the claims specialist who volunteered for the hardest files. I took late calls. I fixed other adjusters' documentation. I let supervisors use me as the person who could handle anything. After Iris, I stopped. I still worked hard. But I asked, who owns the decision? Who has authority? Who signs? Who pays? Who is accountable? My manager noticed. You're less available. I'm more accurate. He laughed. Then he checked my metrics. I was. Boundaries removed chaos. I got promoted that year. Not because I saved everyone. Because I stopped allowing unclear responsibility to become my problem. The first anniversary of Iris came with another tropical storm in the Atlantic. Not dangerous. Still, my phone filled with family messages. Mom, condo shutters checked. Dad, bought flood insurance. Caleb, Olivia's daycare sent evacuation plan. I stared at the messages. No one asked me what to do. They were telling me what they had done. That felt like love in a form I had never recognized before. I replied, looks good. Stay safe. My father sent a thumbs up. I smiled. A week later, he called. Do you still have the old house photos? Yes. Your mother wants one for the condo. I'll send some. He hesitated. I renewed flood coverage. Mom told me. It was expensive. I know. I almost skipped it. I waited. Then I remembered. What? You saying the policyholder should understand the policy. I laughed softly. That does sound like me. It was annoying. I'm sure. He was quiet. Then, I shouldn't have signed your name. The apology came so abruptly I stopped breathing. No. I told myself it was temporary. Emergency. Whatever. I said nothing. I was wrong. Thank you. I still think you could have helped more. There he was. Still my father. I smiled despite myself. I know. But I was wrong about the signature. That matters. Another pause. You happy in that tiny place? Yes. Still tiny? Very. You should buy something. I'm saving. For what? My own house. The words felt different now. Not a family house. Not a property I maintained because someone else owned it. My own. 2 years after Iris, I bought a small townhouse inland. Nothing glamorous. 2 bedrooms. A narrow patio. Storm-rated windows. A new roof. Active flood coverage even though it was outside the high-risk zone. My father came to the inspection. Not because I needed him. Because I invited him. He walked around with the inspector, asking questions. When the inspector mentioned one drainage issue, my father said, "Fix it before hurricane season." I looked at him. He shrugged. I learn eventually. At closing, the attorney slid the deed toward me. Avery Bennett. My name. No parents. No brother. No one else. I signed. My hand did not shake. That evening, my mother brought dinner. Caleb brought Olivia. Jenna came too. My father carried a small toolbox. No one asked for a key. I gave my parents the Wi-Fi password. Nothing else. We ate on folding chairs because my furniture had not arrived. Olivia crawled across the rug. Jenna looked around. This is nice. Thanks. She hesitated. I was awful to you before the storm. I looked at her. You were scared. That's not an excuse. No. She nodded. I know. Then she said, I thought because you didn't have kids, your money was more available. The sentence was brutally familiar. Your life can absorb more. You can recover. You have less to lose. I breathed through the old anger. That wasn't true. I know now. I looked at Olivia. I'm glad you're okay. Me too. That was enough. After everyone left, I locked the door. My door. I checked the deadbolt once. Then I stood in the quiet living room. In my first life, I had saved a house that was never mine. I spent money I did not have. I signed obligations I did not own. I confused being useful with being loved. The storm did not destroy me. My inability to leave did. Rebirth did not give me a secret weapon. It gave me the memory of where the trap began. Not with the hurricane. Not with the roof. Not with the first loan. With a bedroom. With my mother saying, if you're going to make this harder, you can leave tonight. The first time, I heard rejection. The second time, I heard permission. So I left. I forwarded the evacuation warnings. I told them to stay safe. I did not hide public danger. I did not let anyone drown. I did not celebrate when the roof came off. I simply stopped standing between my family and the consequences of owning a house they refused to maintain. The hurricane ruined the property. Their assumptions ruined themselves. They had believed I would come back. They had believed I would know the password. I would find the contractor. I would pay the deposit. I would sign the financing. I would protect the house because I had always protected everything. For one night, they were right about the storm and wrong about me. I did not come back. And when the wind tore open the house they had told me was not mine, I finally understood something I should have learned years earlier. You can love a place without owing it your future. You can love your family without financing every consequence. You can warn people without becoming their emergency plan. You can leave when someone tells you to leave. And sometimes the home you lose is the only thing standing between you and the life that was waiting for you. The townhouse changed the way I thought about ownership in small ways. The first hurricane season after closing, I hired a roofer before there was an emergency. I did not wait for a warning cone. I did not wait for wind. I paid for maintenance because maintenance belonged to me now. The roofer found a flashing issue over the second bedroom. It cost $600. I paid it without resentment. That surprised me. For years, every house expense had felt like proof that my family was taking from me. Now money spent on my own home felt clean. No hidden expectation. No future argument about who benefited. No one saying, "You volunteered." I kept every receipt anyway. Some habits deserve to survive. My father came over one Saturday with a ladder. I noticed one gutter angle looks wrong. I already called someone. He nodded. Good. He stood awkwardly on the patio. In the old days, he would have taken over. He would have criticized the contractor. He would have told me I was wasting money. Instead, he asked, "Want coffee?" Yes. We sat outside. The relationship was quieter than before Iris. Not worse. More accurate. There were things he still did not understand about the way my first life had broken. He could not. I did not need him to. One morning, he said, I kept thinking the house was security. I waited. You know. Something solid. Yeah. Then one storm and it was basically mud. He rubbed his hands together. I think that scared me more than losing money. I understand. I thought if I could get it repaired fast enough, everything would go back. That's how I felt too. He looked at me. Did you? Yes. In the storm? In a lot of things. He nodded slowly. We did not need to say more. At work, I started training new adjusters. The first lesson I gave them was not about coverage. It was about language. Do not tell a policyholder, "We'll take care of everything," I said. A trainee raised her hand. Why? Isn't that reassuring? It is reassuring. It is also inaccurate. I wrote 3 sentences on the board. Here is what the policy covers. Here is what I can authorize. Here is what you are responsible for. Clarity feels colder than reassurance in the moment, I said. It is kinder over time. I heard myself and almost laughed. That was not just claims training. It was the lesson of my life. One trainee asked, "What if they're upset?" They can be upset. What if they say you don't care? Caring is not the same as promising an outcome. The room got quiet. I thought about my mother crying on the phone after the roof disappeared. I had cared. I still had not taken over. Both things could be true. 3 years after Iris, another hurricane threatened the coast. This one turned away at the last minute. Before that happened, my family group chat became unexpectedly efficient. Dad, policy declarations saved offline. Mom, medications packed. Caleb, hotel refundable until tomorrow. Jenna, diapers and formula packed. Me, townhouse shutters scheduled. No one asked who had the generator manual. No one asked me for a credit card. No one asked me to call anyone's boss. We had become a family of adults. It was less dramatic. It was also the first version that felt sustainable. When the hurricane turned north, my father called. All that prep for nothing. Preparation is allowed to be unnecessary. Sounds like insurance propaganda. It is. He laughed. Then he said, "You want to come over Sunday?" Sure. The condo had become their home by then. My mother planted herbs on the balcony. My father complained about the association fees and then admitted he liked not mowing. The old Bennett house had been demolished by the investor who bought it. A new elevated home stood on the lot. I drove past once. Only once. The oak tree survived. That surprised me. The new owners built the porch around it. I parked across the street for a minute. I expected grief. Instead, I felt gratitude. Not toward the hurricane. Not toward loss. Toward the fact that places can end without ending US. I took a photo of the oak and sent it to my mother. She replied with a heart. No one suggested buying the property back. No one said it was still ours. We had finally learned that memory does not require possession. That evening, I returned to my townhouse. Rain started after dark. Soft. Ordinary. I checked the weather once. Then I put my phone down. I did not open the family group chat again. I did not review anyone else's insurance. I did not make a list for anyone. I made tea. I sat by the window. For years, storms had meant responsibility. Someone would need something. A password. A contractor. A payment. A plan. Now rain could just be rain. That was the future I had bought with one decision. Leave. The word had sounded cruel once. Now it sounded like a door opening.